Hi guys. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the next part of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department police reports. This is from Mark Wiegert's report from November 3rd. I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to go over the highlights of this stuff that I thought was interesting. He's talking about one of Teresa's appointments with Stephen Schmitz. Stephen and Craig Sipple owned the car together, but Stephen was the one who she actually made contact with when she went out to take the pictures. I thought it was interesting, this part where Stephen Schmitz states that Teresa took pictures of the vehicle that he and Craig had for sale, and he wrote her out a check. And then, you know, last time he saw her, she was headed north on CTHA, whatever that is. Now, he wrote her out a check. I keep wondering where all this is. Like, where is all of her paperwork? I haven't seen any documents of any paperwork that was found in her car. Was all of this stuff possibly burned? Was it not located? Or has it just not been released to us yet? I don't know, because like I said, there's a check that she supposedly got from Steve Schmitz. So, you know, I'd be interested to know if they just didn't locate any of that stuff in her car, or if, you know, they just haven't released that to us yet. Corporal Lemieux and Wiegert responded to Teresa's residence, where they spoke with Scott. Scott stated he had talked to Teresa last on Sunday afternoon, October 30th, about 2 p.m. I asked him what they had talked about, to which Scott stated they talked about Halloween parties they had both attended over the weekend. And we've heard this before, and like I said, I just wanted to note that again, where he says Sunday was the last time that he saw her. All right. Yeah, Scott has lived with Teresa for approximately 8 or 9 months. He did state to me that he does not remember Teresa ever being gone overnight, and her not being there since Monday. See, now he's saying Monday is very out of character for her. He also stated that he noticed on Tuesday Teresa's truck was also not anywhere to be found at the house. So this is where he's saying that Monday was the last time he noticed her being there, or her vehicle being there. But Tuesday he did not notice her or her vehicle being there. So that's why I thought, you know, that was kind of interesting. This is the second time, and the second person that he's talked to and said, you know, he last saw her on Sunday, but now he's saying Monday. And Tuesday was the first time that her or her vehicle was not there. They go on again, Wiegert goes on again to talk about Scott and several of Teresa's friends had also arrived at the scene at that time. They did print us a copy of Teresa's cell phone activity from her computer. And then they go over the last calls. The last phone call listed on Teresa's account would have been on October 31st at 2:27 p.m. Indicates this is an incoming call from this phone number. Doing reverse dictionary, good grief. Reverse directory on that phone, it came back to Auto Trader magazine. The second to last phone call would have been at 2:13 and was to voicemail number. The third to last phone call would have been to a Manitowoc number. And doing a reverse dictionary, oh my god, reverse directory, it came back to George Zipper. The fourth last phone call would have been at 12:51 p.m. to a Kiel phone number, which would come back to a Stephen Schmitz. And then this is important here. The fifth last phone call at 12:44 p.m. would be an incoming call from a phone number unknown at that time, whose phone number that would have been. And then the next previous phone call would have been at 11:43 a.m., which lists to Stephen Avery. That number is not listed to Stephen Avery. That number was this is Teresa calling Barb's number, Barb's house phone, leaving a voicemail, leaving a voicemail message on her answering machine. This does not come back to Stephen Avery, but it says it right there. Like, yeah, it's really blurry, sorry. But anyway, yeah, it's right there on page 7 at the bottom. So I found that pretty interesting that, oh, now the collar's all messed up. Sorry. Anyway, I just think that it's interesting that they connected Stephen Avery right there on the 3rd. You know, the first day they're doing their investigation, they connected Stephen Avery to being connected to that phone number, which he wasn't. So I don't understand that at all. He again goes on to talk about a personal journal belonging to Teresa and hair from a hairbrush. The hair would have been taken into custody, placed under property tag number 7826. The personal journal, which we had collected, was placed under property tag number 7824. The financial records were placed under property tag number 7825. So I'm just putting that out there in case anybody wanted those numbers for some reason. So then this is when Uyghur contacts Andrew Colburn and asks him to go out and speak with George Zipper and Stephen Avery. Colburn indicated to me he would go over and attempt to make contact with Mr. Avery. Again, why are they sending him over to talk to Mr. Avery? Why are they sending him to talk to Stephen when B. Janda is the one that had the appointment? So, you know, this was the first time that they would have learned that the Janda appointment out at the Avery property was actually Barb's van, but Stephen is the one who was the contact for this appointment because, you know, obviously Barb was at work. So this is when, you know, Colburn goes out and talks to Stephen, and Colburn reports back to Uyghur that Sergeant Colburn also informed me that B. Janda information would be Stephen's sister Barbara Janda, and she would live right next door to Stephen. Which, you know, that... Now, the fact that he knew all this on that same day might be the reason why he was referring to the phone number and to go out to talk to Stephen Avery in his report. Because he might have, by the time he made this report, he already had the information that it was actually Stephen that he should have been talking to. So that could be why, but I thought it was interesting anyway, just in case, you know, just in case. Alright, now we are going on to John Dietering's report on November 3rd. I questioned the representative I spoke with as to whether we could get a phone number pinged, and the representative advised that this could possibly be done by contacting Singular Wireless Department. I contacted the phone number provided and was advised that Singular does not have the technology to ping a phone. I was told that the only way we could possibly determine the location of Ms. Halbach's cellular phone would be if she were placing an outgoing phone call or receiving an incoming phone call, and that would allow Singular's technology to locate the tower she was calling from. I was advised that any other information regarding Teresa Halbach's cellular phone records would have to be obtained via subpoena or court order. So again, we go back to Teresa's friends turning up those records. Why weren't they charged for that? That's kind of illegal what they did. It's very illegal, actually. So the police can't even do that stuff without having a subpoena or court order. But yet they did it without anything, and nobody was in trouble for Ba, 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 ba. Okay, here's something interesting. The list, Investigator Wiegert had apparently made access to Teresa Halbach's singular wireless telephone records via internet and learned that there was the following activity on Teresa Halbach's cell phone on October 31st, the last day she was seen. This was obviously given to them by the friends, by Ryan and Scott and whoever else was there. And then it gives a list of all the last phone numbers for that day. I did an internet search for the numbers and discovered that this certain phone number, the call placed at 11:31 a.m. came back to a Daniel Morrow. It's interesting to note that I have found this on one of the records that's not really talked about much anywhere, but I looked this up, and this Daniel Morrow had an appointment that he canceled, and she was calling him back on the morning of October 31st, probably to reschedule the appointment. And when you later on we'll get into his interview where he says that she had made an appointment, she called him and made an appointment with him that day to come out on the 3rd. So she called him on October 31st about rescheduling his appointment for the 3rd. Which I was a little confused by, because it kind of looked like he was trying to say that she was going to come out that day on the 31st, but instead decided for some reason to come out on the 31st. Whatever. This number listed to Thomas Janda. I was unable to get any information from the internet on the last incoming call at 2:27 p.m. So still, again, they don't know who this phone number belonged to. Alrighty. And then this is Sheriff Poggle. He's talking about turning in the information to the news so that they could get it on to the nightly news. Alright, here we are, Investigator John Dietering on October 3rd. Or, I'm sorry, on November 3rd, I'm sorry. He says, I learned that Sergeant Colburn had been to the address of Tom Janda and had spoken with an individual known to him as Stephen Avery. Apparently, Colburn learned that Avery's sister Barbara is married to Mr. Janda. Colburn learned that Avery was attempting to assist his sister, Barbara Janda, in selling a vehicle of some sort, and that Avery was going to advertise this vehicle in Auto Trader magazine that Miss Halbach works for. Which, we already know. I did request information on George Zipper, one of the other last outgoing phone numbers called by Teresa Halbach. I learned that Mr. Zipper's only real arrest incident of note was a domestic violence situation in 2002. That's the first I've heard of that. At 20-25 hours approximately, Detective Remacher did contact a representative of the State of Wisconsin Criminal Investigation, DCI. Apparently, the representative attempted to contact Teresa Halbach's cell phone, and Detective Remacher advised me that the call went directly to voicemail. So, we already knew this. Again. Like I said, we're still not into the stuff we didn't know yet. We're getting there. The phone number listed on the printed portion of the facsimile shown that the facsimile was sent from this certain phone number. Wiegert advised me that this is normally done at the end of the day by Teresa. Okay, this is interesting, and it took me a little bit to get to this, but once I finally got to the end of this and figured out what was going on with this phone number here, because Teresa made a fax to Auto Trader at 12:30 midnight on the morning of October 31st. So the evening of the 30th, the morning of the 31st. And it was unusual, according to AutoTrader, for her to make the faxes at that time. And the phone number that was faxed from we're getting into that. The phone number that it was faxed from, we're gonna find out that it came back. Let's see. Detective Jacobs from Manitowoc Sheriff Department did make contact with Ameritech Security regarding that phone number, the fax number. Detective Jacobs learned that the phone number was a Green Bay-based Ameritech number, and he contacted the Ameritech Security regarding the number. All he was able to learn was that the number was no longer in service. At 21:11 hours, I received another phone call from Investigator Wiegert, who indicated that he had tried that same phone number again and learned that it had been disconnected. All right. So this phone number that Teresa faxed her last fax to AutoTrader from is a disconnected phone number, no longer in service. So I was like, what is going on with this? This is weird. Now this is a report from Investigator Wiegert on November 3rd. He's talking to Angela Schuster from AutoTrader. Angela states she thought something was odd because on Monday she received a fax from Teresa from that phone number. In checking that phone number, it comes back to a Green Bay address. For more information on that, please see Investigator Dietering's report. Angela states that she thought it was odd receiving that fax because she would assume it would have come the day after Teresa's assignments were completed, but there was nothing on the fax indicating Teresa had ever done her Monday jobs. And checking the time on the fax would have come in the early morning of Monday, and Teresa would not have completed the other photo shoots set for Monday at that time. Angela also informed me she had spoken with George Zipper, one of Teresa's appointments for Monday, and George had confirmed to her Teresa, in fact, had shown up and taken the picture, which she was supposed to do. I informed Angela I would like to get a copy of Teresa's last fax and any other information she could provide me about Teresa's appointments in that time frame. So Angela's calling George. George is saying, yeah, Teresa came and she took the picture. So I don't know why George is like, okay, Teresa's trespassing and this is not okay. Stop calling me. Stop bothering me. She's a trespasser. Don't let her come back to my house and all this other nonsense. The way that he was acting when they talked to him, I just don't like the way that he acted. But apparently when Angela called him, there was no big deal. She didn't act like there was anything wrong. Like, she just said, he just confirmed that she was there and she took the picture. So, I find that a little interesting. But we're about to get into George Zipper's interview next. So, gonna end this one here and we'll start the next video on what I've got next. So, thanks for watching.